Imagine walking into an airport where the buzz, the laughter, and the raw emotion of travelers have been almost completely extinguished. This isn't some scene from a post-apocalyptic movie, nor is it a place forgotten by time. This is just another Friday in the heart of the United States. Only a few years ago, this was a place where dreams, adventures, and fortunes took flight. Today, the terminals are filled with an unnerving silence and rows upon rows of empty seats. Tourists no longer crowd the hallways. The Japanese have stopped coming to Hawaii. Germans no longer explore San Francisco, and even Americans are avoiding their own domestic flights. What in God's name is happening behind this catastrophic collapse? Today, I'm going to show you 10 airports that tell a story far deeper and more infuriating than just canceled flights. This is a story about a seismic shift in how the world, and its own citizens, views the United States and its tourism industry. Stick with me to the end and subscribe, because the airport that was once a beloved gateway for millions has now earned a terrifying new nickname among those who dare to visit. Airport number 10. San Francisco International Airport, SFO. For decades, San Francisco was the undisputed jewel of the West Coast. It was the cradle of the tech revolution, the home of behemoths like Uber and Airbnb, and a dream destination for millions across the globe. But in 2025, something shattered. Drastically, San Francisco International Airport, one of the nation's most critical hubs, began to hemorrhage passengers. In the first few months of the year alone, an astonishing 6 international airlines, including giants like Lufthansa, Air China, and ANA, completely axed their direct flights. The result? A staggering loss of 800,000 passengers. The concourses that once pulsed with the energy of global travelers are now cavernous and deserted. The food courts are shuttered, and a sickening number of check-in counters stand completely vacant. But let's be brutally clear. The airport's downfall isn't the fault of its service or some technical issue. The real reason, the rot, is festering right outside its doors, on the city's streets. San Francisco, once a beacon of innovation and freedom, is now suffering a visible, undeniable crisis that slaps every visitor in the face. Homeless encampments fester just steps from the airport terminals. Luxury businesses are boarding up their windows after being bled dry by constant brazen theft. A pervasive sense of lawlessness and insecurity now repels even the most adventurous tourists. How have we allowed this to happen? The so-called richest city in the United States, the headquarters for the world's most brilliant minds, cannot even guarantee the basic safety of its own front door. SFO, the airport that once connected the world to California's Golden Coast, is being left in the dust. The CEOs have already fled to Miami, to Austin, or even out of the country entirely. And the travelers? They've simply stopped coming. Can a city like San Francisco recover from this self-inflicted wound? Perhaps. But the infuriating question isn't when, but who in their right mind would dare to be the first to return. Airport number 9. Detroit Metropolitan Airport, DTW. Can you even fathom walking through a major international airport and feeling like time has literally frozen? That is the soul-crushing experience many now face when they step into Detroit Metropolitan Airport. This place was once hailed as the symbol of the city's rebirth after its devastating industrial collapse. Today, it feels like a silent, hollow echo of what it once was. The automatic doors slide open to greet no one. The chairs sit empty, gathering dust. The flight information boards display destinations that no longer depart from its gates. The imagery is so profoundly bleak, it feels like a set piece from a dystopian film. And that is not an exaggeration. The flow of international passengers has plummeted by nearly 60% since the pre-pandemic era. An Uber driver, who used to make his entire living shuttling people to and from the airport, summed up the despair perfectly. I used to come here for 10 trips in a row. Today, if I'm lucky, I bring someone who's leaving and never coming back. This isn't just a reflection of a dip in tourism. It's a symptom of a much deeper, more systemic disease. Airlines have slashed direct international routes. Now to get here from Europe or Asia, You're forced to endure multiple layovers, making Detroit an increasingly unattractive and inconvenient option. But what's truly alarming, what should make your blood boil, is that this emptiness is creating a vacuum that's sucking the life out of the entire region. An entire ecosystem of jobs, hotels, restaurants, transportation services, local shops, is being extinguished as the airport's lights dim. While other cities are reinventing themselves with massive investments, vibrant tourism campaigns, and global events, Detroit continues to be shackled by its old ghosts. Crippling public debt, pervasive insecurity, and a horrifying degree of institutional abandonment. Perhaps the most disturbing part isn't seeing the empty tarmacs, but feeling the palpable sense that hope itself has taken a one-way flight out with no return ticket. Will Detroit ever manage to rise from the ashes again? Or is it being methodically erased from the international travel map right before our very eyes? Airport number 8, Daniel K. Inouye International Airport, Honolulu, HNL. There was a time when Honolulu was synonymous with paradise. It was that dream destination for millions, especially Japanese tourists, who would arrive with their eyes shining with pure excitement. But today, walking through its main airport feels like wandering through a faded memory. The joyous laughter that once filled the terminals has been replaced by an uncomfortable, heavy silence. Since 2019, the number of Japanese visitors has fallen off a cliff. Countless flights from Tokyo, Osaka, and Sapporo have simply vanished from the radar. The result is a wasteland. Over 40 shops have been shuttered, restaurants sit without customers, and employees who once served hundreds of people a day now see only a handful per week. But what is really going on here? Some will try to tell you this is just a post-pandemic tourism slump. That's a lie. The truth is far more damning. On Asian social media platforms, a new and disturbing narrative is taking hold. Young Japanese, South Korean, and Chinese travelers are openly stating that they no longer feel welcome in the United States. They cite rampant insecurity, a cold and indifferent attitude, and a deeply tarnished image of the country. To make matters worse, diplomatic tensions and disastrous policy decisions made in Washington, often without any consideration for local realities, have hammered Hawaii, whose economy is almost entirely dependent on those very visitors. And while all this unfolds, you have to ask yourself in sheer frustration, who pays the price for this incompetence? Honolulu, a jewel of the Pacific, appears to be fading away before our very eyes. It's as if the United States is actively forgetting about its own paradise. Is Hawaii still that dream destination we saw in postcards? We want to know your opinion. If you've ever been to Honolulu, do you still hold those vibrant memories, or do you feel that something has been broken forever? Airport number 7, Harry Reid International Airport, Las Vegas, LAS. A shocking paradox is unfolding in the middle of the Nevada desert. Las Vegas, the city of eternal lights, of endless parties, of spontaneous weddings and glittering casinos, seems to have had its volume turned way down. Its airport, which once welcomed teeming crowds with suitcases full of dreams and phones ready for Instagram selfies, now feels as empty as a stage after the final curtain call. According to recent, horrifying data, the number of international passengers arriving at Harry Reid Airport has plummeted by more than 59% compared to 2019. Where you once heard dozens of languages spoken at once, you now only hear the monotonous hum of the air conditioning. A receptionist at one of the grand hotels on the Strip confessed something deeply unsettling. Before, tourists from China, Korea, and Australia filled the lobby. Now I can hear my own footsteps for my entire shift. So what the hell is happening? Part of the answer lies in the new, almost insurmountable barriers to entering the United States. Complicated visa applications, exhausting entry processes, and a general feeling that the country is no longer as welcoming as it once was, are actively driving people away. Many travelers, especially from Asia, have simply rerouted their plans. Tokyo, Paris, and Seoul now seem more accessible, safer, and more modern. Tourism from Asia has collapsed by 46%, and major airlines have canceled direct flights to Las Vegas. But this isn't just a tourism crisis. It's a symbol of something far more profound. If Las Vegas, the glittering emblem of the American dream, is starting to empty out, what other cities are next? Is the United States losing its magic to the rest of the world? Perhaps this isn't just a temporary pause, but the dawn of a new era, one where the world's travelers choose other destinations for their dreams. What do you think? Would you still choose the United States for your next vacation? It's a question that's becoming harder and harder to answer with a yes. Airport number 6, Portland International Airport, PDX. For years, Portland International Airport, known as PDX, was much more than a simple point of arrival or departure. It was a symbol of pride for the entire Pacific Northwest region. However, today, that constant, lively buzz of international travelers has devolved into an unsettling silence. Countless gates and seats that were once filled with people are now just empty, forgotten spaces. A case that perfectly illustrates this grim reality is that of an Australian couple who had dreamed of touring the west coast of the United States. At the last minute, they decided to cancel their trip to Portland and redirect their adventure to Vancouver, Canada. Why? Because the relentless news reports of protests, riots, and an environment of pervasive insecurity have bred a deep and growing distrust among those who might consider visiting the city. The consequence of this is utterly devastating. In just 2 years, PDX has lost up to 75% of its international flights. This is not just a cold statistic. It is a reflection of a much deeper, more cancerous problem. Where travelers from Europe and Asia once landed, drawn by the region's unique nature, open culture, and authentic style, those flights have now silently vanished. The decline of this airport has become a powerful, infuriating symbol. If Portland, a place that once represented hope and diversity, is beginning to close its doors to the world, what does that tell us about the future of the city and its connection to the globe? It tells us that we are failing. I invite you to write in the comments what you think about this catastrophic situation the United States is experiencing. Airport number 5, O'Hare International Airport, Chicago, ORD. Can you imagine walking through one of the largest and busiest airports in the world and feeling like you're in a ghost town? That is exactly what is happening at O'Hare, Chicago's enormous international airport. 4 of its international terminals remain closed due to a catastrophic lack of passengers. Key routes to global hubs like Frankfurt, Seoul, and Toronto have been eliminated with no return date in sight. Compared to 2019, the number of international travelers has collapsed by more than 55%, leaving behind empty corridors, shuttered duty-free shops, and restaurants with their blinds drawn. The vibrant hustle and bustle that once represented the heart of this terminal is now just a distant, hollow echo. But the problem goes far beyond ticket sales or occasional tourism. International airlines are actively prioritizing other cities like Boston, Seattle, or even Toronto because they consider them to be more stable destinations. And why wouldn't they? Chicago's image has been brutally battered since the riots of 2020, where scenes of chaos, protests, and mass looting in the city center went viral across the globe. This planted a seed of profound distrust, especially among European and Asian tourists who now prefer to avoid a destination that was once a symbol of modernity, culture, and global connection. An airport worker summed it up with raw honesty. We used to get groups from Germany, Korea, or Brazil every week. Today, my schedule is empty, and half of the staff has been laid off. Chicago, the 3rd largest city in the United States, appears to be losing its place on the world map. Not for lack of infrastructure, but because of an invisible wound, the complete loss of trust. And this wound doesn't just affect tourism. It devastates small businesses, the families who depend on the airport for their livelihood, and the image of an entire country that was once synonymous with opportunity. If this is happening to Chicago, what is happening to the rest of the nation? Airport number 4, Denver International Airport, DEN. Can you picture entering one of the largest airports in the United States and feeling like you're wandering through a ghost city? That is the state of Denver International Airport today. No lines, no hustle, no buzz, Suitcases roll along by themselves, check-in counters are vacant, and boarding gates look more like museum displays than portals to the world. A place that once connected millions of people now seems to have completely lost its way. What happened to this vibrant hub that once united coasts, families, and dreams? In just a few short months, Denver has lost over 400 domestic flights, a number that should be unthinkable for a city that used to handle 70 million passengers a year. But the problem runs deeper than the price of fuel. Ticket prices have become obscenely, prohibitively expensive. A mother from Colorado confessed that taking her son to see his grandmother in Florida now costs nearly $900 for a round trip. A journey that was once commonplace is now an unaffordable luxury. And the most curious, most infuriating part is that while domestic flights are collapsing, more and more Americans are choosing to fly abroad. Portugal, Greece, Colombia, places where traveling, eating, and feeling welcome is cheaper than it is in their own damn country. What was once a source of national pride has now turned into resignation. Denver isn't just losing flights, it's losing its very essence as a meeting point. It no longer connects cultures or unites families. The question is deeply unsettling. Is the American dream deflating with every canceled flight? Are we living in an age where it's easier to escape this country than to stay in it? Airport number 3, Philadelphia International Airport, PHL. In 2025, what was once a source of national pride now generates bewilderment and outrage. Philadelphia, the very symbol of liberty and the birth of American democracy, is experiencing an alarming decline. Its international airport, which used to connect thousands of tourists to the living history of the nation, is now known for something entirely different. Absolute chaos. Endless queues, mountains of lost luggage, passengers sleeping on the floor, and a level of customer service that seems to have vanished entirely. Negative online reviews have skyrocketed by 300% in just 6 months, and airlines have already started cutting flights to the city. But the problem goes far beyond canceled flights. The city is experiencing a kind of silent, creeping abandonment. A lack of budget, incompetent administration, and the exodus of thousands of residents have directly impacted essential services, including the maintenance of the airport. One tourist reported waiting more than 3 hours just to exit the terminal, describing the place as a lawless zone where no one seems to be in charge. American Airlines has pulled key connections from Europe and the Caribbean, drastically reducing the arrival of international tourists who now, quite sensibly, prefer to fly into New York or Washington, D.C. This forces a deeper, more painful reflection. How can a city with so much history reach this point of collapse? How does the cradle of independence become the poster child for modern urban decay? Philadelphia is no longer synonymous with culture or living history, but with chaos and neglect. The big question now is whether this city can recover, or if it will be sadly remembered as another fallen symbol of the decline of America's historic centers. What do you think? Does Philadelphia deserve a second chance, or is it time to look for other destinations? Airport number 2, Orlando International Airport, MCO. There was a time when Orlando's airport was synonymous with pure excitement. It was the magical gateway that connected millions of families with the worlds of Disney, Harry Potter, and Jurassic Park. Every day, children would run off the planes, dreaming of meeting their heroes. But today, that excitement has vanished. The waiting areas are nearly empty. The immigration counters look desolate and lonely, and taxis wait for passengers who no longer arrive. Flights from cities like London, Frankfurt, and Toronto are being eliminated. Nearby hotels are barely reaching 36% occupancy, and obtaining a visa to enter the United States can take over 4 months, while countries like Japan and South Korea offer electronic visas in a matter of minutes. A Canadian family summed it up perfectly. It used to be a dream to come to the United States. Now we prefer simpler and more affordable destinations. And what once seemed unthinkable is now a harsh reality. Universal Studios reported losses over the summer for the first time in more than 2 decades. Not even during the 2008 financial crisis did something like this happen. What is going on? Sky-high prices, suffocating bureaucracy, and an increasingly unattractive national image are driving travelers away. Is the United States slamming the door on international family tourism without even realizing it? Leave your opinion in the comments. Where would you travel instead? Airport number 1. Louis Armstrong New Orleans International Airport, MSY. Can you imagine landing at an international airport and finding it nearly empty, without the typical live music, without excited tourists, and without the buzz of new arrivals? This is what is happening in one of the most iconic places in the American South, the airport in New Orleans. Where trumpets and laughter once sounded in every corner, an unsettling silence now reigns. The arrival of international tourists has fallen drastically, with flights from cities like Paris, Rome, and Mexico City arriving with more empty seats than occupied ones. The magic of this city, famous for its musical soul, its vibrant cuisine, and its fascinating history, seems to be fading away amidst lonely corridors. And this isn't just a coincidence. Increases in tourist taxes, mandatory insurance for visitors, and the constant fear of hurricanes have created a deeply unattractive cocktail. Meanwhile, other destinations like Portugal or Thailand offer an equally rich cultural experience but at a much more affordable price. So why would anyone pay more for less? The Southern culture, which once seduced thousands with just a note of jazz or a plate of gumbo, is now struggling to attract an audience that has simply stopped coming. But here comes the real gut-punching question. Are we witnessing the twilight of an era? Or is there still something left to be rescued? Behind every empty stage and every vacant chair, there is a story that deserves to be told.